I was called Construction Geek. Now I'm promoted to Construction Dork. So,
you went from geek to dork.
Yeah, right.
Promotion.
For this special episode, we brought in
Burcin Kaplanoglu
from Oracle Industries Innovation Lab, and we went full on dork, hard. This is the first time we've done a podcast without recording live, so check it out and let us know what you think. Now sit back and enjoy as
Burcin
shows us why he's got a Ph Dork.
All right, welcome, dorks. This is episode 25. That's right. I went to the producers beforehand. We are correct. It is episode 25, and this is a special episode on a couple of levels. This is dorking out on the Oracle Innovation Lab. This is taking someone who I've had the pleasure to interview before, who was a geek back then and has elevated himself to a full-on dork. This is called progression, but it's also our first episode, if for those of you who've been with us from the beginning, was 5/19/2020. So it is officially 1 year in for the dorks, and nobody's canceled us yet.
We made it. Yay.
We did. So woo! Hey, to all you dorks out there, thanks for making
impossible.
this possible.
Yeah, congratulations. That's a huge
Thank you very
achievement. Congrats.
Thank you. So we have an esteemed guest with us today that I think a lot of you already know from all of the stuff he's done, especially recently at MCAA and the MEP Innovation Conference. Actually, I should get that right?
Burcin Kaplanoglu.
Here, Burcin, say hello. I'm going to go out of order tonight. Say hello, introduce yourself, tell everybody kind of that isn't familiar with you who you are.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. And thanks, Trent and Travis, to invite me to this session. So I worked in the industry for almost 18 years, and I joined Oracle now 3.5, almost 4 years ago. And part of my role was to, lead innovation for the construction engineering business. And I've been doing that for 3 years. Recently, my role changed with the Innovation Lab. We'll talk about that too. Now my role expanding to other industries. They're still relevant to, what we're doing in construction, but that includes like utilities, communication, other industries too. So we'll talk about that. But very excited to be here. And really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, strap your seatbelts on, everybody. It is going to get really dork here. So this is going to be special. Trent, anything special going on? What do you got going? Where are you coming at us from? What's going on tonight?
Coming at you from the new hideout here, the rental house. For those of you that know, I've recently we sold our house, so sitting here in the rental house. That's where I'm coming from. And tonight, no special drink. Actually, I think I've got a water with some fruit punch Crystal Light sitting next to me. So
you almost look like you're in hiding. You're kind of dark, like you must be hiding out somewhere.
It is a little bit of a hideout. Yeah,
that's good.
I guess I didn't even realize I should probably turn a light on.
Nah, we're good. You got a face for radio anyway.
You all might notice missing tonight is Jonathan Marsh. Jonathan, we're with you wherever you are, but that's the way it works. Travis, introduce yourself. I saw something coming up to your lips there a little bit. So what are you at? What you doing?
I don't know, Burcin, if you're still in the Chicagoland area, but I'm a couple hours west of Chicago still, where I always am. I actually still have my bottle of Cobalt from last podcast, and this time I went old school, the first seltzer drink, spike seltzer, and making a highball with some club soda and whiskey there. So nice and relaxed tonight.
That's my grandmother's drink, by the way. God rest her soul. That was my grandmother's drink. Mine, in honor of, the usual, I have an old elk with me tonight, and I made me a little old fashioned to enjoy for this later evening show. For those of you who aren't with us live, we are recording a little bit later this evening to make everything work out. So, all right, enough of the introductions. Let's get deep. So, Burcin, you joined, you said about 3.5, 4 years ago, right, at Oracle, and you were really focused on construction innovation. Talk about where you were then, and kind of, I know it's really transformed into something else. So talk about what you were looking at when you first started, and take us down the road a little bit.
Absolutely. So when I joined, Jeff, you and I actually did, a few interviews before. So, I had some ideas about where the industry is, where things were, but things has changed a lot, especially, joining Oracle gave me a huge, I'll say a base, right? So it's many of the top ENR 500s on that list, from US to international. And, I think gave me ability to meet a lot of interesting people and actually learn from them. And that kind of triggered the vision and the mission for the lab too, because, going back to those discussions, it became pretty clear that everybody was looking for problems to be solved in the field. But, we had many solutions, and everybody was looking at the same thing, where there's tons of point solutions, but there was nothing really, connecting all those. And then the teams were actually pretty simple, and that's what eventually became the mission for the lab. So I'll start with the first one. Everybody wanted to know where their materials are. Step one, they wanted to know where the materials are. Is it shipped? Is it on site? Who has it? Is it lost? By the way, every single contractor said, yeah, losing material is a major problem, and we don't know where things are, and we find them a week later, right? Or we never find them. The second one was crews, right? Managing crews, effectively managing them, where they are on the site. Are they, performing the work they're supposed to? Is it the right location? Is it matching the schedule? Like all the basics, right? So the first one was material. The second one is crews. The third one, it became very clear, clear to me in the first 6 months working and having many conversations, was everybody was trying to figure out progress. And that's true. If you guys know, you guys know this really well, whether you're an owner who, has to know the progress, to a general contractor, to a subcontractor, third, fourth, fifth layer, contractor, everybody has to say, this is what I've done, right? This is what I've done today. This is what I've done next week. Everybody has to do progress. But the reality is they all have to tie together, and we all have to do it. Just taking, digitizing it in a way that's just taking, mobile applications and doing it is not sufficient enough. We need to do more than that. So that was another team. The fourth one, Jeff, was about how we centralize these things, right? So we do every project one at a time. It's all prototypes, and now there are many conversations was, hey, can you centralize some of this stuff? Like, do I have to go to every site? Can I use video? Can I use these other technologies? Can I use cameras? We have all this information, visual data. Can we actually centralize? And the fifth one, again, with many conversations, was about visualization. We all want to visualize the data, right? Whether it is virtual reality, augmented reality, whether Excel spreadsheet, all that I know. Everybody wants to visualize the data, right? Wherever they store it, they actually wanted to see it. So that was pretty eye-opening for me, especially in the first 6 to 12 months. That everything you and I discussed 4 or 5 years ago was pretty much everyone's problem. It was not unique. It was not different. And, no matter how sophisticated the organization was, they were all going through the same pain points.
I was going to say, they're all still looking for their supplies too, by the way.
They all do, yes.
They're all still looking. I mean, they were lost then, and they're, I think a few of them have found their way out of the forest, but, that's kind of pretty cool. Travis, I know you look like you had a question.
Well, I was just kind of thinking that you were given what you were looking at in I don't know if everybody knows, but you built a building there, right? That was the whole, it was a use case and use cases, I guess is the way I would put it together. And was that always the plan, or did you guys kind of come up with that in the process of trying to figure out all of these different bullet points? Was the plan to always build a building and research it, or is that spring up out of this? Actually,
I want to say it really happened organically. So originally, these 5 use cases I mentioned, like for material, workers, progress, centralizing and data visualization. So we tried to focus on them. We had at that time, we actually nothing physical. You met with partners and customers and kind of figure out what makes sense. And then I was 6 months into the job, and one day suggested that, what, we're doing these great work, our products and integrations and all this stuff. But the reality is, until we try that on a physical environment, we're not really going to sure how these things work, right? You actually have something physical. So I suggested we should build a construction site, and that's what it started. So in Chicago, we built a small construction site, and for our audience, we will appreciate it. It is super simple. It is a job site trailer, a fenced area, a steel structure, right? Some gravel, some dirt, materials all around, and that's it. For if you're looking at from an architecture point of view, it wasn't really exciting to look at. But the reality is, it's always all about use cases, right? How we can try them, learn from them, make sure those things are actually working. So, the building kind of become byproduct of that, because I think industry really wowed us, by the way, like our customers and, visitors, because we build this, in some ways it's our minimal viable product, consider it this way, right? So we did a little construction site and said, hey, how is the industry going to respond to that? Is customers really going to engage? Is partners really going to work with us? Like, is this something really needed for the industry? It even exceeded our high expectations. And I'll say this, we had pretty high expectations for this. Once we start having, very large general contractors and, owners flying from Japan, China, Australia, and spent 2-3 days with us, we were like, wow, we must be onto something. Like, they must be answering some problem that the world needs, not just North America. And based on that, Travis, we got, funding to actually build a building which has a lot more capabilities than just a, construction site. But we incorporated all that into one location.
That's awesome. Trent, did you come up with anything?
So I know you talked briefly about, and I'll just kind of keep on track with the building that you put together, but you talked about the different areas that you were looking at with supplies, material. I guess I'm curious. So those were the things you're looking at. Can you share a little bit of what you found? I mean, what did the example job building there teach you? Like, what were some of the big standouts?
So one of the big standout is, I'll say, we innovate every single day on a job site, whether you have technology or not, right? So one of the things surprising for us was when we built the first site, Trent, we had a steel structure and we had to use RFID, readers for, RFIDs to material tracking, and our superintendent used duct tape, and that duct tape survived polar vortex, and it survived like 85, 90 degree summers, right? And none of those RFID tags tagged on the steel beams and stuff didn't fall off. Only one, I think, fall off in 3 years at that time. So, when I talk about innovation, I keep reminding everyone that all our crews and the workers, we always innovate. We always come up with solutions. And sometimes they're super simple. You don't need something sophisticated for that.
Yeah.
Keeping that aside, in terms of what we learned, I will say this: we also learned that, as Jeff said earlier, everybody's losing materials, period. Like, there is not a single company I haven't met that has not raised their hand and say that's an issue, tracking it, knowing where it is. And, it even become a bigger issue last 12 months because we need to have more visibility to our supply chain, right? So we need to understand where things are to actually pull this together.
Yeah. So you hit on a great one there. Like, you were learning the innovation practices of your on-site practitioners, right? Like the doers that are out there. And like anyone who's listening to this, that's where you need to look. I mean, you're 100% correct. Look at most of the great innovations throughout mankind. Where have they come from? I mean, like, I use the example of in the military, Travis, you'll probably remember the chest wounds, like the sunken chest wounds,
Yeah.
the bandage that had the flapper on it or whatever.
Right. I know what you're talking about.
That was developed by some like field medic and it's like a standard practice item throughout not just in combat, but in hospitals, in any, it was developed right there by that guy. Just,
it's usually the people in the trenches.
Some dude with a mind and some materials, right? So it's pretty cool. That's great you bring that up, because I really believe in that. Those are people that you can really learn from.
And Travis, you said in the trenches, right? Those are the people who are in there. But I will also want to talk about, what lab did, and there were few things that was kind of surprising to us. I think you asked that question earlier. So one of the things is, we said, okay, we'll use this site, construction site, to explore, test, validate technologies. Let me give you an example. So if your company came to us and say, hey, I have this amazing concrete sensor, we can link it to your, scheduling product, and it will actually do this, this, and this. The reality is, this is the place to try it, right? So then they can bring it, we can put it, we can see how it works. Good example of that. Then we also decided, this was actually, I will name him, a really good friend, Ph Kaplanoglu, who was VP of Innovation at that time for Skanska.
Yeah.
And Stacy said to us, because we did these workshops, we really engaged with some, thought leaders in the industry to say, we got, what do we want out of this? What do you want? Because we're going to serve the industry. We need to hear you. Stacy said, well, you should really think of it as not products and demos. You should really show us how it solves problems. So that's what we did. So like at the site, hopefully we could host you one day in physically. There are experiences, we call experiences, where you live day in the life of a construction worker. There's a full script, like there's 4 or 5 characters, a project manager, superintendent, architect, and owner. You go to a job site, you pull up a product, it's scheduled, it's behind, you solve a problem, you go to next one, you actually live it, right? So that has been a big hit. So I'm gonna give credit to Stacy for the idea. And I say this all the time, it's been 2.5 years. So it was a great idea. It really helped people to kind of understand not just one piece, but how these pieces tie together, right? So that was, a huge improvement. One surprising trend is similar to what Travis, you said, was some of our, customers said, well, I want to try some of this on my job sites, but I have teams who haven't seen it before. And some of them are, skeptical of the stuff. Can I bring them on board? I said, sure. So we actually had project teams come to this location to see how these things work, right? So you're basically like, if you think about education, if you think about adoption, if you think about change management, right? So you're actually having a physical space for them to come and try these things rather than, me showing you on a slide or showing you a video, or someone comes to your job site and you're already busy, right? And then they're trying to explain to you, oh, these are the 5 steps you need to do to finish this job. So I think that was surprising to us, but we also have seen, it helping the change management for people to, adopting these things.
Yeah. One of the questions that came up in my head too is you talked about, it is an active job site. You hired subcontractors. I believe it was a union site, so you brought them in. How are the workers? How do they relate with the technology? How do they integrate? Were they put off or anything like that?
So the building, the image you see behind me is actually built in year 2020. So it was, a union site, a general contractor managed it. And one of the key things we did with the general contractors, part of the safety training, we actually provided a technology training to everyone showed up on the site. Why? So as an example, one of the key things, we have cameras everywhere, right? We have sensors for worker clips, like they're in a zone. So we were able to educate them and say, okay, these are the cameras, these are what it, this is what it does, and this is what it does too. Same thing with worker, right? Okay, these clips, it's not GPS location, it's not tracking you. By the way, your phone tracks you 10 times more than what this does, right? Which is the truth, right? Here's what it does, and here's what the dashboards look like. We actually had a very, very high rate of adoption based on that. So, going back to what you said, Travis, it was about education, right? Educating them and explaining them what is the data for, what is it used for, what are the benefits. So we actually had a really high success rate based on that.
That's great to hear, because I think that we hear it all the time that the tradespeople are against technology. They don't want any of this stuff, and I think it's just wrong. It is a matter of education, right, Jeff?
Well, I was going to say that's the critical path, right? Like, it's such a great learning experience, and I hope, and I imagine, and we'll get to this, that like you're probably disseminating the information that you learned, so you can say, hey, listen, not only is what we learned technologically speaking fine, that's going to change, but what we learned procedurally and how to engage people, because that's one of my favorites. You hit it. It's like, I don't want you putting a belt clip on me and tracking me. Snap, I'm on Facebook. It's like, yeah, you just gave that to the world, like, and you Snapchat everything, and yeah, okay, sorry guys, but you're being tracked way more than that, and this is what we're using these things for. So it's great to see they did that.
And Jeff, similar to something you said earlier, and similar to what Travis said, so crews want to go back home and do work safely. They also they want to work efficiently, and anything we can provide them and show them that these things actually help their lives. Look, construction is super stressful work. We all know that, right? We continue to build every project like a prototype, right? Our mental health is a major issue. We all know that. Everyone knows these numbers, so I'm not even going to address that, right?
No.
So anytime we come to the market and say, look, this is going to help your life, it's going to take all this other stuff away from you, it's going to automate it, these are the things it's going to do, and they're extremely open to it. Once you actually can communicate clearly, well, these are the benefits to them and what it does, I think they're up for it. So as long as you're actually transparent and clear, I think we need to do that.
Well, it's funny, Trent, you remember this? We were on this, we did this DFMA talk recently, Jonathan, Trent, and I, and it really struck me. I learned something in it too. Jonathan said, the first time you build something is always the worst. So we pretty much build it the worst every time. And that just struck me. I'm like, we are horrible over and over, but really, I think honestly that's a generalization, because I think we're getting a ton better at like the 90% we do the same every time.
Yeah.
But
That's the cool thing about, oh, sorry, Jeff, I'll let you finish.
No, that jump.
That's the really cool thing about Burcin, what you're talking about here with that building you've put together, because, you've almost created this job site BIM. I mean, like you've almost made BIM on a job site. And what I mean by that is we do a really good job of the pre-construction BIM process now, right? Like where we can kind of make all the mistakes when it comes to design and fitment and some of that stuff. We can make those mistakes in a low cost environment before we hit the real job site. But what's the one thing we never get to test without real money implications? And that's the job site tech and the stuff that you're talking about.
Yep.
So it's really cool because you've kind of created that environment where now it's like, maybe I can, some of these bigger contractors are like, maybe I could try some of this stuff in a realm where it's not costing me millions if it doesn't work. I mean, that's really cool.
And I will tie to this. So it is providing a safe place where you can fail and it's not going to hurt your project, right? Period. Like if you think about it, a lot of these things, you don't want to try them, or you want to try them, but you want to do, I think everybody's tired of word pilot, right? Pilot this, pilot that, we're going to do this. And then how you scale it, that's the second word, right? So, and look, my experience is, because we have done these things, right? So we try technologies and they improved, and then we work with the partner and the customer. Eventually they scaled it. I will say this, it's not 100%, but in a small scale, when you try, you probably catch like 70% to 80% of the issues. Okay, there's going to be like 20% that you're never going to know till you actually put on 100 locations, right? You're not going to know those things. But if you can solve 70, 80% upfront, and then, it's golden, right? You already you can say, yeah, that's what it was. I'll fix it because I know I've seen that, on before, and this is how we dealt with it. I think that's really helpful.
It's such a real world thing and it's the 80% rule, right? It's the 80-20 rule. Yeah. It's 80-20 in everything. What I want to know, so in all of that and all the way you rolled it out, what was the thing data-wise that surprised you in either the smaller build or the larger build that just you went, and if I was betting, I would have never bet on that?
Good question. So data-wise, that surprised me. I think I think I knew it, but I think till I saw it in hand, the amount of data we create every single day is so much, right? It is unbelievable. And, Jeff, you and I mentioned earlier about like 5G and the connectivity and all that. So when I share what I believe is going to happen in the market, I tell the contractors and the tradesmen, I say, well, you think that, we have a lot of data today, wait till we actually have that level of connectivity and bandwidth. And, we actually don't even know what that means, right? But even today, with the cameras and the sensors and the mobile apps and the other devices the drone flights, all the stuff, the vast amount of data that we collect and how to make sense out of it. I think, I knew it, but till you actually pull everything together, put in one place and try to make sense, you don't really realize how massive it is. So this project behind me, I checked the numbers today because we're doing an R&D project. I had to check it. So like one camera on the site, just one camera, I collected 98,460 images. So just one camera, right? So imagine that, right? So just one device. So if you're thinking about the amount of data and the imagery and everything else we're going to collect, right, and then make sense out of it, then the power of AI and computer vision comes in, and they're developed to a certain level. They still have some ways to go on some of the computer vision stuff, but it's improving. And it's helping us. I mean, we see the differences, and they're getting us. But I think the vast amount of data is the answer.
I think you're right. I mean, I think we're epically going to change. So, and to do a cool segue here. So when I interviewed you last, this is about 4 years ago, you were really impactful for me on understanding 5G. Like, you were super geeking out on 5G at that point. You were that far ahead of it. And I will be honest, like, I had to go do my research afterwards, and I put it in there that, like, hey, this is coming. And I particularly remember your description that I have given you credit for. I will say, I always give credit when I'm on stage, but I give you credit that eventually, because of the amount of data and because of the 5G connectivity speeds, you had this understanding of this orchestration of an IoT enabled job site that would work where you couldn't collide because everything was equipped to know where everybody was at all times. And what I want to know is from where that was when you were thinking about it to where you are now, how do you feel about how 5G's come along? How do you feel about where we're going? And, kind of drop a little bit and get geek, man. These guys love
I'm going to
geek.
get
I
now.
love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So while we were, I think it's significantly improved from 4 years ago. But I think there were higher expectations in terms of timeline, especially for connectivity. I think we expected to be at a different place by now. I think, what we have lived through the last 12 months has an impact to that, right? The industry of communication industry still hasn't fully agreed on the specifications. So since we're talking construction terms, basically every 10 years, this industry group agrees on what the specs are for the next generation of connectivity. They still haven't agreed on it. But everybody has some ideas what it is, so people are working towards it. So I think there's been some challenges to the hardware and the software when it comes to that, but it's still improved a lot. To really, I'll say, geek out on this, I think one of the big examples is what's going to happen to our job sites in terms of hardware cost, because like when you have a mobile phone, which is $1,000, a smartphone, whatever you're using, right? Or even $500. Those devices are expensive because all the compute is done on the device. Like I have an iPhone, the face recognition is actually run on a chip, on that device. So all the compute is done. That's by the way what drains your battery, right? So imagine one day your device that is in your hand is actually just sensors. It is going to have very long time for battery, because you're not draining battery like you normally do to compute stuff, right? Like you guys know this when you go to driving instructions and other things that apps you use, it drains the battery, right? It's like you're on the road for a couple of hours, you need to charge it. Imagine all that compute is not done on your phone. It's actually done so fast with very low latency on the cloud. So you're actually just using this to actually, just a sensor, right? So what it also means, look, we're construction, right? We're going to break things. We're going to lose them, right? It happens every day, right? And no, we never do that. I know.
No.
Nobody ever breaks anything.
No, we never break stuff and never lose them. But it's also going to, I think, enable adoption of these applications, right? So because currently those applications are running on your iPad, they're running on your phone, they're running on your laptop, they're running on these things, right? And then there's the next phase, Jeff, coming in, which is edge compute. So there's huge things happening about, okay, you can have these things done on the cloud. That's great, right? So it means, I'll give the phone example. Let's say the application, rather than running on the phone, it runs on the cloud, so it communicates, right? But there'll be some things that has to happen on the edge because the latency has to be even less than 10 milliseconds. What is that? Let's think about a construction equipment, right? It is running on the site, and Jeff, you're walking behind it. You actually cannot really have 10 milliseconds, right? You actually cannot afford that. But they actually, and if you step back to look at the world, so we're just looking at the construction site, let's look at the surrounding world. The best example is autonomous vehicles.
Mhm.
This is one of the reasons why we don't see them running every day on our streets, because compute on the device, right? The speed is not there yet. So we don't have that reliability and that for it to go to the cloud and do all that yet, right? Computer vision is there. It is not at the highest level reliability that we need yet, right? That's another reason. And our streets actually are, have some variances, whether it's suburban and this and that. But the reality is, construction site is, I personally think, is a lot more complex than those roads, because we have, you had a hole here today, you're going to have another one next day, right? You have this piled up here, next day there will be someone walking behind that equipment. So it is that constant change environment, even though it's very small scale, right? So I think the world is ready for this, and the investment into computer vision, investment into edge compute, investment into cloud. Look, I work for a company which is cloud, right? We provide cloud services. We actually announced our edge compute devices a few months ago. So I'm seeing a lot of improvement. So I'll say in next 3 to 5 years, we're really gonna try to see these things coming into our job sites, making big impacts. And it's really picking up.
So I want to go. I mean, I want to go deep on edge compute. So
Yes.
sorry, Trent. Sorry, Travis. Travis, you might be with me here, but edge compute. So that for anybody who's listening, that isn't that IT dork. It's you can utilize the cloud itself to do massive amounts of AI and machine learning and deep learning, et cetera. But aggregated over time, you can minimize those and then move them to devices that work on the edge, that work in that production. We're seeing that in farming, right? Like in manufacturing. That's where we're really seeing them take actually the edge and work with companies like you to put a device in their data center, or think about this, in your trailer, that then starts to move the edge to you. So that because you're right, we barely have 10 milliseconds on some job sites, to be honest. So but what it does is it leverages all the power of the different things that you can learn in the cloud, and then moves the minimal set to the edge of the network as close to the device as possible.
Right, you get a
to
little
allow
mini
that
cloud,
compute.
right? You get a little
Yes,
mini
so-
cloud in your neighborhood, right?
It's it's like your little rain cloud.
But the key, Jeff highlighted something really important. So all those things require tons of data sets, right? A lot of computing, a lot of processing. You can, as Jeff said, you can do that on the cloud, and then the model actually is dropped onto edge in some ways, right? Think that way, right? The model, you can still train it on the cloud, by the way. It will continue, right? It will train, and you can actually go back and update it, right? So this is the kind of stuff that is gonna change, because architecture-wise today, and we're really geeking on this right now, right? Architecture-wise,
Go for
right?
it.
If you think about today's world, we have applications on the cloud, right? Like we have scheduling products, project management, all that stuff, right? And then we have like our phones and other like tools on the site, right? There is nothing in between yet, because if you think about connectivity, that those sensors and devices eventually go to a backbone and then goes out to internet, right? You through a router out to the world, and then hits the cloud. Does the compute and comes back. It's really fast, don't get me wrong, but some of these operations and the vast amount of data is not sufficient yet. So the speed and latency is really going to help us to do these things on the job sites.
It's truly powerful to give you that. I mean, give an idea. It's so that a machine eye can actually look through. We're seeing it in fruit processing already, right? It's looking for bad fruit and good fruit, and you don't have people doing that anymore. It's doing with an eye. It's doing fast enough to do that. So we're bringing that power to the edge. Do you think at some point we'll be able to orchestrate the different data sources we have and provide some other sets of models or things that we might be able to learn from? Like, I'm interested in that set of data.
So it's already done on computer vision. As an example, like today, you can take a set of images, and because let me say this technique is like what is used to be done. They used to come to Travis, Trent, and Jeff. They used to come and say, well, you need to have 1 million images to train this model or whatever, right? Millions of data points. Now there's methods where you take, I'm making this up, 5,000, 10,000 images, and you train from that. It creates 1 million images. And then you take those 1 million images and train your model, right? So that, think about that change, right? Think about the data is creating other data to train actually models. It's happening today. So this is not, futuristic. This is not, something in 5 years from now. It's existing today. And when I've seen examples of it, we've done things with it. Like even on this job site, we tried cameras and tried to see social distancing, live measurement. Does this work? How well it works and all that. One story you will appreciate is, as you can see in this, video, I'm bald. So from time to time, the computer vision will recognize my bald head as a hard head. I mean, it is, it happens, right? So
the sun hits it just right.
I know, just the right angle, right? Jeff, you're not gonna have any problem, but I do. And like stuff like this, if it does recognize hard hat or not, it's maybe not a big deal, right? But the reality is, if you need to have 99.999 accuracy, right, that is a big deal.
Yeah.
For a phone false about me having a hard hat for a split second, it says no, yes, it's not a big deal. Yeah. But for other operations, it is huge.
But okay, so you've got the data set. Sorry, Trent and Travis jump in, but I'm just going to lose it with Burcin over here, because so you have all the data sets, you have all the information. How do you see, and I don't know how much, how much fab or prefab went into what maybe the job that you did. Like a lot of the folks that we talk to on a regular are really headed in that design for manufacturing and assembly, that DFMA style. So was there any insights there? Did you use any of it? And did you learn anything about it?
So I would say prefab stuff was like the mechanical systems and, like the things that are pretty common now. We didn't do anything that is not done before. Let's put it that way. And one of the reasons is the building itself is very unique, because there's a lot of features and functions that, like if you prototype it and build it, it's not like you're gonna build a home or a condo or repeat this, right? Mm-hmm. Earlier today, Jeff, I did a LinkedIn Live with construction engineering, and like we presented a startup we work with, which their goal is to build hospitals, and they are gonna build in some ways they're like clinics, and all you do is you go to a menu and say, I need this square foot, I need this many rooms, and it generates the design. It makes sure it's code compliance. It helps the manufacturing. And then you even say, okay, I need, this type of rooms, I need these things in the clinic. And then it actually has the IT embedded into it, which is a key, because what happens is, you and I have in the past discussed this, many of these projects, it's a hospital or sophisticated facility. All those IT systems are also built as a prototype. They come and connect these things together, right? The same thing in hospitals. You have these things, right? Components, like when you go to a hospital and the stuff behind your, bed is panel, great. But the reality is how that panel communicates with the other parts of the system. Somebody still goes there and makes sure those integrations are in place. So this model, the startup we presented, is actually going to have those panels already integrated with the IT network that comes with the building or the components of the building, right? So that's the world is heading. We didn't do much in this building because it was a unique structure. But I truly believe that is the future of industry, right? You got to solve the issue with manufacturing. You're also going to solve the issue what you do on the site.
So I know Travis has a question, so I'm gonna let it jump to him, because I'm absorbing all of that. And Bixie, if you're listening, that's the low voltage data folks. Just listen in. This is all coming your way. Like, be ready for that innovation. And it's a version of selective generative design. I don't know what to call the ability to put that kit of parts together, but
yes,
I think the kit of parts is the future in a lot of areas. But
Travis, go ahead. The key word is that kit of parts, right? That's coming.
Yeah, that's really on its way.
So I'll try to see if I can gracefully pivot just a little bit. You mentioned earlier about the telecoms coming together and trying to agree upon standards and specifications, and that's trying to get construction to do that is a whole other ball of wax. But this is my pivot. you've recently changed roles at Oracle into, going from construction innovation to innovation as a whole. So one of the things we try to do is highlight innovations in other industries that can apply. So I was wondering if you had any insights there that our listeners might like. Like we're really trying to learn from, we're not the first people that have gone through these problems, right?
Absolutely. And actually, so I'm happy to say this. So the lab itself has utilities, construction, and communications as tenants. So the first, last year and a half or so, I got really educated on similarities between these. But now I work with, as an example, hospitality and food and beverage, and a few other industries. And what I'm learning is everybody's trying to do the same. So there is a middle layer of data, right? Everybody's trying, and everybody has these multiple products. They're all trying to bring one platform to the market. Every industry, I'm not even talking about construction, right? There's like middle layer. Mm-hmm. Everybody's working towards building these AI products. Most of them, everything is machine learning on top of it. So you can look at multiple things and pull it and make sense out of it. And then everybody's looking for sensors, whatever the sensor is. Like if it's a hospitality, it is the sensor. Like it could be the cleaning robot that goes on your floor, right? That's one sensor. It could be the light switch that the light itself is an occupancy sensor, so it tells you if you're in the room or not, right? So, so everybody's looking to tie the sensors, the mid layer, and the top layer together. One of the things I've learned was I give this example and say, well, this is how I see the future of construction data is. Some of these industries actually charge for data calls. Imagine you come to a day that you have these layers built, you have really valuable data sets, right? And if somebody wants to use it, I charge them a penny. But the reality is it matured enough, right? It came to that level of sophistication that the data is so valuable and anyone who actually wants to use that data set, you actually charge it. One of the things for the industry is it's all about data, right? So you talking with thousands of customers, right? Everybody has their data sets, great. But the reality is that's not enough for one organization, right? To make sense out of this, we need to figure out how to share it. We need to figure out how to monetize it because everybody has to get their share out of it, right? And it needs to be fair. So I think until we reach that point, I think there's going to be the issues that we want to solve is really going to be hard to be solved. I'm going to flip the coin, and Travis, I'm going to look at academia, right? So there's tons of research done in construction tech now in academia, and I follow that closely. Some of you might know I also received a PhD, so I have some understanding of what it takes to get there, right? A little bit.
It's a little educated. Yeah.
Little educated there, right?
That was the geek to the dork, right?
Exactly.
Did they give you a Ph Dork DHD, right? You got a PhD in dork.
Exactly. It's just that what you wear. So if you look at those if you look at that data sets, academia says, give me your data, and then the contractor says it's mine, and then you say, and then they say, why aren't you sharing with me, because I want to do research on it, right? That gap is a huge gap, right? So we need to research these data sets. We need to actually make sense out of it. Eventually it's going to turn into products. Eventually it's going to improve the industry. But till we as a collective, as an industry, figure out how to do that, I personally think it's not a technology issue. It is more about finding a common ground to build these things that we can actually all learn from it.
Well, I think that's a great point. We don't usually try to name drop too much, but I mean, your friend Manny Gopapar, I mean, that's what he did at the University of Illinois, right? I think that we in construction sometimes forget that all of these universities have research arms, and they dig into all this data and everything, and out of that comes products that make the industry better. And like it or not, that's just the way the system works.
I mean, you think about it, Travis. A data set, right? If it's only my data set, it's how much I suck, not how much everybody sucks.
Right.
So, and we have to get a lot bigger than that. And who better to trust than academia to really just put a set of eyes on it? And we're at the point in technology where we can make it anonymous enough, and it's your secret sauce is your culture, not your data.
Absolutely.
Right.
And we have to think about that now. But what I do want to ask, and the mad scientist in me is like, I'm going to ask a tough question. We'll see if you can answer it.
Sure.
So you've gotten all of these innovation teams under one roof. Is construction as bad as we get a rap for?
No.
Or how do we line up with everybody?
No, I don't think it's bad. I think, I think going back to my first statement, the superintendent who puts the duct tape, that's still innovation, right? I think we innovate every single day. So going back to, we are not as, and I'm tired of seeing these graphs, how our industry is so much behind production, you know, all that stuff. Look, another thing, Jeff, you and I talked about this in the past. You know, everyone talks about IT spending in the industry, but we all know a lot of that spending is buried in project cost.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's true.
So the reality is you charge the jobs, that becomes part of the project cost, that becomes part of it, and no one actually sees those, right? So I personally think we spend in the industry more than what the academia or economists think it is, right? I think we do more than that. Also, we innovate every single day. But I'm going to give you guys a unique example that is an Oracle example, and that has nothing to do with construction. So due to the hard times we had in the last 12 months, right, data sharing become really important. And, you know, Oracle announced that, you know, a lot of the pharmaceutical trials are done on our platforms. And one of the things that Oracle has is a data sharing platform, like University of Oxford, and you know, we can provide you these articles. I read this on a public, you know, blog, so
we trust you.
We trust you.
Right? What I learned from reading through this is like you can go and they share data sets with each other during, you know, this time, and Oracle actually hosts that, right? So then let's say you go request, so that you go, Jeff, and say, hey, I like this data set, I'm requesting access to it. And then the owner of the data set decides which data fields you can access and how you access it.
That's like the Tim Berners-Lee future of pods of what each of us would have, right?
So,
you have
the perfect example. We have the technology. This is why I was saying technology is not the issue here, right? Like we as Oracle have the technology to provide that data share. We have another group in Oracle called Oracle for Research. That's what they do. They work with researchers, right? This is what about data sharing, about common data environments and all this stuff, right? So it's existing out there. It's not new to our industry. The technology is there. It is about, as you said, Jeff, it's about the culture, it's about the process, it's about the people, understanding, like you said, the value of that organization is your culture, how you do things, more than, you know, your 10,000, you know, data set points, right? It is more than that.
It's so much more than that, and so much more powerful. And we need, you know, and you're saying academia is out there and that the platforms exist that we can share this information. We can start to learn from it. But you heard it from him. We're not as bad as they like to kick us around about. And I think that's really important because, I mean, I talk in front of crowds all the time, and I'm going, listen, the innovations that we've had, it's just that technology's definition's wrong.
Right.
You know, like that duct tape was technology. This finger is technology, as John Stebbins recently told me. Like, my finger is technology, and what I do with my hands, that's technology. It all is, and it's how it combines to
it
really
doesn't
create
have to
something.
have circuits and microprocessors and everything like that. You know, doesn't mean
so I guess technology is not the only way we innovate, right? So we innovate with process, we innovate with education and the company culture, we innovate. Technology is here to enable it, right? So that's what I say. Like, so the products we provide is to help our customers deliver their job every single day. And we have the technology. So a lot of problems, from data share to this, to scheduling, to project management, we have it, right? So I think industry has it, not just we. Industry has it.
For sure.
It's about the people and the process. And going back to the first thing you guys asked me, what was the reason why you built the lab? it was about addressing the people on the process, because we knew heart to heart, we can't solve everyone's problem, right? We need to work with the ecosystem. While you're solving the problem, you all absolutely have to head on address the people in the process. If you can address those two, people are going to come on board, they're going to participate, and they're going to actually work with you. And that's what happened in, I'll say, last 3 years, 3.5 years.
It's awesome. Trent?
Yeah, and we innovate by accident, right? Just want to throw that in too.
And it does happen, because some of those products, history says, right, some of the things that came to our lives just happened by accident. We find out even in pharmaceutical, some of these things happen because they were looking for some other problem, but they come up with something that actually solved a different issue.
So I know we're coming up to the top of the hour, but I think wouldn't be right to end this without at least asking kind of the big, looking into the future. And I think people want to know, coming from somebody who kind of has their head, into a lot of things. We talked about a lot of different techs here, but I just want to ask, and it could be anything, not construction, anywhere, but in the next 3 to 5 years, what's got you giddy? What's got you, what's exciting? I mean, I know you see a lot of things, so yeah. I want to hear it from you.
So I think what computer vision can do in our day-to-day lives, not just construction, what it can do for hospitality, what it can do for transportation, like vehicles, I think that's what gets me excited about the future state, because it's going to allow us to do a lot of automation. That's one. The second one is connectivity. We talked about it already, so not going to go there. And the third one is what machine learning really can do, right? Once we figure out how to really put big data sets together and learn from that. But I want to caution us with one thing. As someone who watched that really closely with multiple industries, machine learning learns from our past, and our past has our own biases. What I don't know what those biases are. We don't know that, right? We don't know, there are examples of these biases out there. You can read articles about it, talking about, we use this product, it did some selection, but then we learned that, the selection was always this because it learned from last 10 years, and that was our bias, right? This is what it did. Mm-hmm. So what if for a schedule, there's a certain way we do these things? It's because that's our bias towards a certain way of acting. We don't know these things. So I think one of the key things is we look at the future. And you mentioned Mani's name. So him and I geek about this a lot. Understanding the data sets, understanding, pulling it together, but also keeping in mind that what we learn with the data sets we have is going to have some bias. Good example. If we use some things to select contractors, which contractors are best for these projects, it probably has a human bias in it, right? We have certain biases that we used as humans. Some are conscious, some are unconscious, that represented our history in 10 years or 15, 30 years, right? Whatever the timeline is. So if we want to make a real change, that's the risk about, machine learning. Because it's really learning from those patterns in the past and tries to replicate it the best way it can for the future. It's constantly learning, by the way, don't get me wrong. If we change our patterns, right, it's going to learn different things. But the question is, we don't know what they are.
So it's really important that we look at the outcomes, right? That we leave the decision making,
yes,
right, to people. We let the processing and the options go through the algorithms and through the machine learning, but we understand that their biases are there. So we leave the opening to the opinion and the decision to the human, right? Because then we can be open to it. And I'm going to take a quick side. If you want to learn what you're talking about, what he's talking about, go read the book, You Are a Thing and I Love You. It'll really open your eyes to how machine learning and AI and what it all means and what the data sets mean and what the biases mean. These are true things that are based in reality around unconscious bias, but actually just data bias, things that you wouldn't even think are bias. So,
Yes.
my favorite is she does a lot about ice cream flavors, and it's hilarious because it's really to understand what Burcin's talking about. So, Travis, it looked like you had a final question. I know
I
we
was
want
just
to
gonna
get to
say,
wrapping it up, but go
Yeah.
for it.
all I'm hearing is that we can train our robot overlords, right? That's what I'm coming up with.
And when it starts at
Confirmed.
the Oracle Innovation Center,
Well,
you heard it here first.
I will say this, Travis, and I must a lot because we did work with like Faro and Boston Dynamics Spot and Robotic, right? I know we're a little over time, but I'll say this quick anecdote. So when the robot shows up on the site first time, guess what? Everyone stopped working. Right? Everyone wants to see it.
Yeah.
It's like this big shiny object. Everybody wants to see it, and it's doing laser scanning. And if any of you have ever done laser scanning, you can't really have like 30 people walking around the laser scanner.
It's really bad for you.
Right? So the data is not good when you collect it, and the cleanup took us like weeks to clean that up because it's not coming good because that's the reality. But what happened is after a while, it just become another tool that's on the site that actually goes and does its job. And when it sees you in front of it, it changes its way. It just becomes so human nature. We were all excited. Everyone showed up, wanted to see it. Crews stopped working because they wanted to see it. The other thing we did on that one, Travis, is we actually tried to schedule end of the day so there's less people around, right? That helped a lot too. That's another angle. You become smarter. You go, okay, we probably shouldn't do this at lunchtime when everybody's eating lunch and they're gonna try to look at this. So it helped a lot. I personally think in my lifetime, hopefully I live long, I'm not going to see these things take over my work, right? So they're going to be complementary, similar to what Jeff said. The machine learning is going to make some suggestions and we'll be able to decide which ones and which ones are not. And that's like we brought a scheduling product, which works on a product that actually looks at schedule and does predictions. And eventually the predictions are either accepted or declined by the user. Same logic, Jeff, right? So it is not saying this is be all and all. It's just telling you, and then it gives you a reason why it is. So you can agree or disagree, but it's giving you ideas why that comes true. So I think we're still far away from robots taking over, but it is coming. I mean, I think we're going to see more and more on the sites.
And think about this. I mean, we have the example living with us, right? Drones. If you look back at the original drone photos we were getting 5 or 6 years ago, everybody was like this. You can see it because they hear it and they go, oh. So every head is looking up. Now look at the drone photos that go over where they don't even look. Like they don't even get, they're like, yeah, it's a drone, whatever. Like they're always flying it. It just becomes part and parcel to what we're doing. So yeah, there's always some glam in the beginning, but then it becomes part of the process. And Trent, I know we're coming up on time, but you said it here. Isn't the decision still biased? Yeah, it is. This is a deep talk around all of machine learning and specific AIs and the other technologies that we have, including generative design and others, that there's always a bias. The human has an ability to understand their own bias. If we've been shown it, then we can understand it and we can adjust for it. But there's also this hope that it'll go away, and this will get me in trouble, but that's never going to go away, right? Everyone is biased because we all have an opinion, right? Reality is different.
That's part of being human, right? We have opinions.
We all have different experiences, different backgrounds that form an opinion, right?
That's right. I love that single source of truth and going after it, because my truth is my reality and my reality is mine only. So there really is no one single source of truth.
No,
there is an area for me to gather information. So I really think that's it's critical to understanding all of this too, though, like that part of opening up the discussions, opening up the curtain behind and saying, hey, look, this is what's behind the curtain, everyone. Like there's no wizard back here. This is what we're doing and how we're doing it and why we're doing it. And what it can do and what it can't do. Right. And that you said it. And I love having leaders in this position that understand that there is a negative to the positive. Right. That's part of us looking forward. So,
but isn't that to every innovation, Jeff? I mean, think about it, right? Whatever came that was negative to the positive, right? It improved our, the ones that improve our lives, the ones take away our workload, to think about workload or in other things, are here for a long period of time, right? The ones who actually didn't really bring much value to our lives, whether it's personal, whether it's work, other stuff, disappeared after a while.
And I think it's the augmentation of what we're all capable of. So I want you to leave everybody. So we got to wrap it up, and I got to be the one to call it. That's always my gig over here, to call it, right? But leave everybody with like a go geek out on this for just a little bit. Like, go do yourself a favor. It's what, you've got a few minutes and you're sitting on the beach and you're thinking about something. What are you thinking about? That's just outside everything we've talked about. Leave them to go think and go dork out. And so the next time they see you, they were like, hey, I did that thing.
Oh, okay. So I want to say this. I'm going to make a confession. I have hard time disconnect myself when I need to disconnect. I would say I recommend everyone take the time and just don't do what I do. Take your time, and when you really need to disconnect your brain from whatever you're dealing with, right? Because when I can achieve that, I learned by trial, I do much better after that, because we all need to take time off. We all need to, do that. So maybe the question next time they see is, have you improved on this? Were you able to figure out?
I had to say, I completely agree with you. My family and I took a vacation to the mountains of Tennessee last year, and at the first day we realized there was no cell signal at the cabin. And by the end of the week, we all agreed that was the best vacation we've ever had, because I was able to put everything aside and just be. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I think just be yourself. Try to be. I'm working on it. How about this? This is my confession. I'm working on just time to time disconnect myself and just be myself.
That's going to be my question for you next time. So
Yes.
in June, once a year, every year, you guys, the dorks know this, once a year, every year, I take 7 days with my kids and we completely disconnect. There's not even a TV. There's not even a radio. It's 1 week on the lake, nothing else. And it's for it. So Burcin, I'm going to hold you to it. The next time I see you, when
I'm going to try.
It's going to be, did you give me 24? Did you give me 48? If you guys can get to 72 hours, you can really feel something. So, and it doesn't make you less of a geek. Let's be honest about this.
Right.
You're still a geek. Go geek out on the plants. Follow Jonathan Marsh into the forest and forge something. All right. That's for you, Jonathan, because I know you're going to listen into this one. Burcin, thank you so much.
You're
Where
welcome.
can people
Thank you.
follow you? Where can they go learn more about you?
So I think, my favorite platform, LinkedIn. I do LinkedIn Lives there too, but also personally, I learn a lot from it. So like I follow a lot of people on it. I learn from others too. So I'll say follow me on LinkedIn and stay in touch. Thank you.
Not for nothing, you were the first person I ever saw go live on LinkedIn. That was a big one. I saw you do that. So it was an innovation. So this has been episode 25. That's right, 25, 1 year strong from the dorks. Dorking out on Oracle Innovation Lab, getting deep on 5G, machine learning, and everything that's going out there. Check out Burcin, check out the dorks. It's been great to have you. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks for our next episode. I think we've hit a point, by the way, gentlemen, that when we said what we said, the youth of tomorrow, I think we've hit a point of being too old. I sound like my father.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, when I referenced SimCity to people, I was like, oh my God, I'm giving away my age. Like
I can reverse engineer your age from
That's
Kansas
exactly.
City.
yeah, because like
going around.
one of the things we did is we built a full city simulation for Oracle utilities. It's like, it has all these use cases and stuff. And I explained to people, oh, it's like SimCity. And I was like, well, I'm just giving away my age when I say SimCity. They probably don't even know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, they don't at all.